It's a Willy video. The silence on Classic Plus is deafening. I love this title, Willy. Well done on the title of this video. Yeah, we haven't heard much other than Blizzard basically saying, sit tight, we're working on something. Sit tight, we're working on something. Sit tight, sit tight, sit tight, sit tight, sit tight. Blizzard, I'm sitting tight. Come on. All right, come on. Ah. Okay, here we go. Let's watch the video.
Plus has been something really in discussion since Classic came out in 2019. World of Warcraft is an MMORPG after all. It's built in a way where it runs its course and under usual circumstances has to move into expansions and beyond. And for ourselves, we've done Vanilla multiple times, we've done TBC, about to be multiple times, we've done Wrath, we did Cataclysm, and now somewhat unbelievably we're in Mr. Pandaria with Warlords of Draenor of all things looming ominously beyond that. There have been plenty alternative versions of Classic 2 from Season of Mastery and Discovery, Hardcore, and of course Anniversary more recently. That is a whole lot of Classic WoW over the past 6 years and since it first re-released. But at the same time, we don't have anything permanent that players are able to go back to and call a home whenever they want.
Yep.
Today I want to talk about the state of Classic Plus at the moment.
I was feeling this way a few weeks ago where I was like, I just want to log into WoW and chill. I mean, I love hardcore, but hardcore to me is like this fun challenge. But I mean, I logged into my 60 hardcore and did a dungeon. That's one of the things I did. But I was like, this, like, hardcore to me doesn't feel like a main WoW. For me, it feels like an alt WoW that I have fun doing, right? And retail has not been like that home for me, I think, in probably a good 5 years or something, where it feels like, okay, yeah, it's really fun to play, but I'll check out like major patches and expansions, but I don't know if I would call retail home. Classic WoW has gone all the way to MOP, and MOP, once again, I love, but it just doesn't feel like Classic WoW anymore, right? Like, it just doesn't. So it's like, okay, so it's not MOP, it's not retail, it's not hardcore. Okay, so you could argue, so I logged into SOD, and I was like, okay, SOD was my home for like a year and a half. Like I actually played SOD like that whole most of that whole time. I quit a little bit, and I was like, holy crap! Like I really miss SOD because this was like my WoW, right? SOD was like my WoW for a while, and obviously they stopped producing SOD content. So like SOD's GG, retail, hardcore, mob. So it's like, where's my WoW home right now, right? And right now I'm playing mainly hardcore. So like that's what it is right now. But it's like I want to be able to log into a WoW and just be like, yeah, this is it. So the last WoW, I guess, would be Anniversary. And, you know, maybe I should make an Anniversary character. I've been thinking about it. I've been thinking about making an Anniversary character just to raid every week, just to mess around. I think the main reason I haven't is because for me, I've leveled so many times in Classic WoW that like what keeps it leveling exciting is to do it hardcore. So I've thought about downloading the old school hardcore add-on and leveling hardcore on regular servers to hit a 60. And if I die, then delete and get again and try to like make a hardcore character on the normal servers to make it spicy. But I don't know if I want to do that. I'm just kind of lame. I've thought about a lot of different stuff, but then the other thing is like I hate world buffs too, and like I don't really want to get world buffs every week to raid. I kind of do want to raid. I miss raiding in Classic, but world buffs suck. So I don't know. Anyway, I'm just trying to letting you guys into some insight of my internal dialogue for me when I'm waiting for Classic Plus of all these different things, and it just feels like Classic. Like we need Classic Plus, man. Right? We need it.
And to ask for one thing in particular, whilst I'm well aware Classic Plus may be very far off into the future still, is there any information that Blizzard feel they can give us?
Everyone in the chat is saying hardcore transfer hello. That's fair. I don't have so I have 260 mages on hardcore, but they're both on the non-anniversary realms, and I kind of want to raid on a mage, and I kind of want to be on the PvP realm. So you can only transfer to a PvE realm, and I only have warriors I could transfer. So if I wanted to transfer a warrior to a PvE realm, I could, but I want a mage on a PvP realm, I think. So just to answer that question, that's a fair thing to say.
At this point in time to give us some kind of roadmap or teaser about their plans for this project in the future, because at the moment we're reaching really a culmination of events in the World of Warcraft Classic space, which make the current silence on Classic Plus and the future of this project quite deafening. let's talk about what's been going on recently and why it seems now that so many people are getting a bit impatient in the ever-growing Classic Plus waiting room. Let's start with a private server situation. It happened about a month or so ago now, and I'm sure you've seen content about that already.
Yep.
Some servers had cease and desist letters issued, some of them closed because of that. And for Turtle WoW specifically, things even go beyond that, with Blizzard pursuing legal action against them. I'd always assumed in part that Blizzard didn't go after private servers more regularly because basically this happens. And what I mean by this is a massive amount of news coverage and free advertisement for said server, whilst also making Blizzard look like the bad guy in this.
That's actually pretty true. How many people in the chat have played private servers because of all the news in the last month about the private servers? Like, how many people are playing Ascension because you heard they got sued and they're like, oh, that looks pretty fun? Like, yeah, it's probably a lot of people.
Mario, and I want to talk about the intention behind Blizzard going after these servers now, instead of focusing on the legal side of things here. For the legal side, honestly, we'll see what ends up happening, but you may be surprised to learn I am
So there's a lot of people in the chat saying me, but I didn't like it. It felt pretty meh. You know, me, but I couldn't get into it. Yeah, I think a lot of these private servers, they're on the right track, but I don't think any of them have hit it perfectly. I think Turtle is probably the closest. But yeah, that is interesting to hear. I haven't played any of them, so I don't have that firsthand experience. And like, yeah, part of me kind of wants to try it, not to support the private servers, guys. No, not to have fun. No. This would be purely for research purposes only. Purely, right, for research, just to see what would be good for Classic Plus. For science, that's right. I wouldn't be playing the servers to enjoy myself. I would be playing for science.
In fact, not an expert on international copyright law. Private servers were one of the biggest reasons that Classic happened in the first place. There is no denying it. It was a proof of concept beyond reasonable doubt that there was a tremendous amount of people that were super invested in the idea of going back to how World of Warcraft started on day one. There was of course the question asked to Blizzard at that panel pre-Warlords of Draenor in 2013, and there was the infamous reply too of "You think you do, but you don't" by J. Allen Brack. And Brack also did the presentation for Classic's official release at BlizzCon 2017 as well. Bit of a twist of fate there. Plenty of vanilla servers have existed over the years, and especially they did back then, but one at that point in time grew far beyond the size of the others, and it was called Nostarius. They posted up some crazy stats upon their closure, with 150,000 active accounts, 3.2 million characters created, and a team of 30 people, which they say was just a bit smaller than Blizzard's original team, helping out to form the game. But they only got to the point of sending a cease and desist letter to them, threatening further legal action if they didn't follow those orders, and Nostarius would end up closing in 2016. Following its closure, thousands of players were left without a home that they had enjoyed through this private server, and back then that home they wanted was just plain old vanilla World of Warcraft. This was when the demand for Classic began to really ramp up, with a petition started by the Nostarius developers, and said petition being formally presented by an original WoW dev, Mark Kern. As we now know, the petition ended up being successful, with about 280,000 people having signed it. Then of course eventually Classic WoW dropped in September of 2019, so quite some time later really. The reason I'm going over this history lesson is because, as it often does, history is currently repeating itself. The big difference here is for Turtle WoW specifically, they've got to a point where they're being properly sued by Blizzard, not just asked to stop what they're doing via a cease and desist letter, though for all we know they could have received a cease and desist, ignored it, and well, that's got them to this point where we are now. Blizzard are also seeking to claim the content that's been included in their custom server as well, instead of it being deleted as outlined here. It says requiring defendants to deliver to Blizzard all copies of materials that infringe or violate any of Blizzard's rights.
Oh, I didn't know they were doing that. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, we need all the Turtle WoW files too. Yeah.
rights described herein, including all versions of Turtle WoW client and any Turtle WoW servers. The point is, it's a similar situation to what we had with Nestarius, where private servers were seeing growth as they were providing an experience that people felt as though Blizzard were not. And the fact that Blizzard are going after private servers that are pushing custom Classic content now, whilst they're apparently developing Classic Plus, really points to the fact that maybe, similar to Nestarius, some of these servers have gotten too large, and Blizzard feel as though they have to address them, otherwise they will be a real competitor to whatever Blizzard is actively working on. Now, we don't know what the resolution of this legal battle will be, but I think in any event it shows that Blizzard is indeed working on something and feels as though there are already competitors out there. However, unlike the Nestarius and Classic situation where the goal was just always very obviously re-release Classic, here things are a bit more unclear. It's heavily implied that the next project will be Classic Plus from Blizzard's actions, from comments following Season of Discovery.
I wonder if when Classic Plus comes out, if they're gonna call it Classic Plus because there's so much hype around this name, or if they're gonna go with something else. Like, I wonder what they're gonna call it. You know what I mean? Because they did Season of Discovery. I hope it's not Season of something. To me, that like lacks the Classic Reborn. Yeah, bro, if they did like Classic Reborn, like that sounds pretty good. WoW Reborn. Or is that what Ascension's doing? Or is that already used? Because they obviously can't do something that's already used. That'd be cool though. That'd be cool. One of the things that I don't know if Willie's gonna touch in this video, but it did come to mind because we briefly talked about it last week. And it's this concept that players in the community was really adamant on hashtag no changes when Classic came out in 2019. Like, very adamant. No changes. Please don't change our game. We want it just like this. And now everyone is like, we want Classic Plus, which is quite literally the opposite. It's Classic with changes. So someone in the chat the other week was saying, well, this is kind of hypocritical, right? The community said no changes for a while, and then they're like, no, we do want changes. But I actually think it's not that hypocritical at all. It's really just the timeline being a timeline, right? So in RuneScape, we saw RuneScape come out with just RuneScape, Classic RuneScape, no changes. And the game came out and it did okay, and then it died. And everyone's like, now that we've played through the game again, we want more stuff. That makes sense. There's actually nothing really hypocritical about it at all. And it's like, cool, they do RuneScape Plus, essentially, which is old school, and the game launches, and it's doing fantastic, right? Well, fantastic based on, like, their RuneScape player numbers, right? Now, back to WoW. We launched WoW in 2019 with no changes. Of course people don't want anything different. They haven't had the thing that they wanted to play all along. It's coming out. Of course you do no changes. Now, 6 years later, you could argue it's been way too long already. They should have probably done this a few years ago. But now people have played through Classic. There's nothing to do because they've played through it. Now people want Classic Plus. So I would make the argument. It's not hypocritical at all. It's just a timeline. People wanted just Classic, and now people want more content on Classic since they've played through it again. There's nothing wrong with that. It's fine.
And from Blue Post, but we really just don't know for certain. And this uncertainty is in part why people are still seeking out alternatives to what Blizzard are currently offering. And
So someone in the chat said, this OSRS stuff is so tiresome, I don't want to hear about that game anymore. The reason it's constantly brought up is because it's one of, I don't know if I want to say the only one, but it's one of the best examples to draw parallels from, because RuneScape is in the same position WoW was in, except RuneScape is about, 6 or 7 years ahead in the timeline. So when someone is literally on the same course as you, but 6 or 7 years further, right? They launched, I think, Classic RuneScape in 2013 or something, and WoW launched in 2019. So there's like 6 years of advance of knowledge of we've been through this. We know we can learn from it. Why not draw those parallels and learn and take what we can? Right? There's no reason not to. There's no reason to not look at it as a case study. What worked? What didn't? What lessons have been learned along the way? I think it would be foolish to not take a look at something like that.
Sure, they will continue to do so. Let's move on though and talk about something else which has happened in the classic WoW space that's been causing a bit of drama. So not so long ago, China had their 20th anniversary for World of Warcraft. As part of that, they had a new type of server announced, Titan Forge servers. These would be a bunch of realms that would rotate their raids between Vanilla, TBC and Wrath of the Lich King, with Wrath talents, updated itemization and so on. And Blizzard did a presentation for this where they mentioned that these realms would be their main focus for the next year. Now I think some people interpreted this as now Blizzard are committing to WoW in China and aren't even doing anything in the West at the moment. Well, beyond what we already have. But this was a presentation for WoW in China for Chinese audiences. Yes, it was done by representatives from Blizzard in the West, but the context of whom the information was for, I think, is pretty important. China didn't get Season of Discovery, so it does go both ways with one set of us getting some content whilst the other doesn't. And to be honest, these Titan Forge realms will just be raid logging with slightly different itemization and microtransactions. We all know that's what it's gonna be, and that microtransactions appear to be way more accepted by Chinese audiences. Ian even mentions during the presentation that purchases will carry forwards to other versions of World of Warcraft. Blizzard would never mention that kind of thing for Western players. People will get way too mad. Don't get me wrong, I can understand why people will look forwards to this, but I'm really looking for that World of Warcraft again, not just rotating between the relevant instance of the week with very little to care about in between. Blizzard did put out a blue post after this mini backlash as well to the news in China, where they said, "We want to clarify that everything in those comms, particularly comments about our focus, is intended for the China community specifically. What we are working on, be it Classic Anniversary, Burning Crusade Anniversary, Mists of Pandaria, the future of Progression Realms, or anything else we're working on in the Classic space has not changed. And to be clear, our announcements regarding our plans in China do not change that." They also referred back to a blue post that was made some time ago when Blizzard announced that they were basically going to be stopping work on Season of Discovery. They said here, "We have big plans and big ambitions for this type of found photographs content set in the original world of Azeroth. But in order to realize those ambitions, we need to make sure we're spending our time where it will make the most impact on the long-term future of WoW Classic. We want to set ourselves up for success by taking the time we need to get in the proverbial kitchen and cook, iterate on, and shape our ideas."
This, for people constantly ask the question, is Classic Plus confirmed? Right? This is one of the paragraphs that when I say basically, but not really, this is kind of what we're talking about. They said, for content set in the original World of Warcraft, in order to realize these ambitions, we need to make sure we're spending our time where it's going to make the most impact on the long-term future of WoW Classic. This first sentence here, when they sunsetted Season of Discovery, is, content, like new content. I mean, when you guys say this is confirmed, I mean, it literally says to do these ambitious things, we need to sunset this so we can do it. You can't really get more clear. It's pretty confirmed, but it's not like, it doesn't have a name. It doesn't have a date. They haven't really said it, but they've said it, right? So this is what I'm referring to. This is what most people are referring to.
Lessons learned from Season of Discovery into something truly exciting. Season of Discovery was always meant to be an ephemeral seasonal experience, and whilst it became so much more for a time, we're extremely excited about things we're working on in the future. You may also remember at the end of Season of Discovery, they gave all characters a free boost to Mists of Pandaria realms who had defeated the first boss in the Scarlet Enclave. This meant people could get straight up to 85 in the hope that they would start playing MOP for its duration, and that would be enough to tie people over until there was further announcements on what's happening with Classic Plus. Then again, there are also anniversary realms that have just gotten Phase 6, which is Nax Ramus, meaning TBC early 2026 right now is looking very likely. Yep. Blizzard are also in the spot here where they could re-release TBC Anniversary on January 16th, which would be the same day it came out in 2007. Could definitely see them doing that.
I think that'll be a little early. We'd only have Nax for 2 months. I guess 3 months. 3.5 months. Maybe not. yeah, maybe they could. Maybe a little early, but...
This is all great if you're enjoying either of these options. I feel as though a pretty sizable number of players, well, aren't. It's all well and good in the interim to pursue other interests, games, or whatever it may be, but I think for MMO players that they like the familiarity of having something to go back to now and again, and right now there just isn't anything really. It's like we're drifting in an ocean waiting for something to appear on the horizon, but we've just no clue when anything will be happening. I mean, I just want to recap everything that's going on at the moment. It feels as though Nostalrius is happening all over again with the private server scene. Blizzard are actively pursuing legal action against them or cease and desist orders. You've got many classic WoW streamers who are some of your most invested players with the most invested audiences simply not playing the game and playing other things despite you releasing new games at the moment in the WoW space. We are reapproaching Warlords of Draenor. This was the expansion back in the day where classic content really began to grow massively. The embers of the fire that is Classic Plus have never left, but right now the flame is as low as it's ever been. It's no surprise people are looking elsewhere for experiences they hope to find in Classic Plus. The Blizzard are starting to take real action versus these realms, and that Classic is overall seeing some of its lowest player counts since this whole thing started in 2019. And whenever Classic Plus releases, which I still think it will be doing, it won't be perfect either. Season of Discovery took a long time before the player base stabilized. People are saying old school RuneScape is in its golden age right now. It's over a decade old. In fact, I remember old school when it first came out. I was there. It lost players quickly and had to start making custom changes to grow the game in a new direction. In the run up to Classic WoW in 2018 and early 2019, there were frequent communications from developers on their decisions and what was...
I've said this about Classic Plus. There's a real world where Classic Plus launches and it's okay / kinda sucks for the first 6 months, year, 2 years. That's, sorry to make that person in the chat upset again, that's what happened to RuneScape, right? Like, there's a real world where Classic Plus needs many years to breathe. Player feedback, dev time, that's what makes any MMO good. It gets that over time. That's a real possibility, right? Where it's going to take a couple years of cooking, right? Even Season of Discovery, and a lot of players will disagree with this. I think I'm right, but I think Season of Discovery peaked in phase 8. Right? Most people quit in phase 1 going into phase 2 because things were not what they wanted. I think it took the Season of Discovery devs a year to actually get that stride right and put out some really good content. I think the Scarlet Enclave raid and the Karazhan Crypts dungeon and the final secret quest chains were some of the best content SOD had. I would say objectively the best content SOD had. And I know a lot of people are going to say, well, phase 1 was better, but I think phase 1 was good because there was a lot of people playing, the level cap was low, and you could raid with your friends easily. Not that it was necessarily good content in itself. Those are different things. That's a different discussion. But my point is, it takes a while to cook sometimes, okay?
Being tested. This may not have always ended up being exactly for the best because, you know, we got things such as spell batching, but in any event, it was great for those interested in following along the realm's progression and really hyping up the release. And we know from Blizzard's records, the release of Classic WoW was one of the biggest successes they have ever had. And I think Classic Plus can be on that level. But at the moment, as it is, we are waiting. We're waiting to see what's been in the works for who knows how long now, and to find out what the next big chapter for Classic WoW will be.
We're gonna be in a better position if Blizzard has been working on Classic Plus since phase 1 of Season of Discovery. So if they've been working on Classic Plus already for like a year and a half, I would say that's a pretty good thing. If Blizzard didn't start working on Classic Plus till phase 8 of SOD, when it was more sunsetted and it was like, okay, people like this, that means they've really only been working on it for, you know, a handful of months now. Very different. I don't know because obviously for them to get it approved, they needed to, Season of Discovery was the proof of concept. Okay, people like this. Season of Discovery did quite well. The player numbers were there. Okay, let's invest in this thing. There's a real chance they didn't really start working on it until a few months ago. If that's the case, it takes a long time, we'll see.
As mentioned at the start, we really don't expect any big news for Classic this year with Anniversary and Mr. Pandaria, and on retail you have the Midnight Alpha that's just started. On top of that, there's no big Blizzard event this year such as BlizzCon to announce things at. But if there's any chance of a teaser, a roadmap, or just really anything to keep Classic Plus interested players in the loop, then I hope that the time for announcing things is sooner rather than later.
I think it'll be
I'm well aware
BlizzCon
it's likely to be as far away as BlizzCon 2026 for an official announcement.
I think it'll be BlizzCon.
And I am expecting to be waiting until then. But with everything that's happening in the WoW Classic space at the moment, that waiting room is pretty massive, and it's only going to grow between now and then. But for Blizzard, hopefully the time to share a bit more information about what's going on behind the scenes is preferably sooner rather than later. And that's all I got for you today, so let me know your thoughts on everything I've gone over in the comments down below. And as always, thank you all so much for watching and listening in, and I shall see you all in the next one very soon.
I mean, yeah, it's a great recap vid, man. We're all in the same boat together, right? We're all here waiting for C+. It's like, all right, my prediction is BlizzCon next year, we get the announcement, and it'll come out relatively quickly. It's raining outside. After BlizzCon next year. That's my prediction, right? That's what they did with Season of Discovery. They announced it at BlizzCon. It dropped a month later. Next September is BlizzCon 2026. I could see it coming out next October, next November, a month or two after that. I could be wrong. I don't know. Someone in the chat said, hey, Xaryu, you should be a consultant for Blizzard on Classic Plus. It's tough. Okay, so someone like myself, I have been playing since 2004, essentially the whole time. I've played Season of Discovery, I've played all the classics, I've played retail, I've played it all. I've put in more hours in this game than less. It's thousands of days played. It's crazy. Now, for someone like me, you might think, oh, well, this guy, you know, streams, whatever, he might have all the answers. I don't. I would not be able to tell Blizzard what to do. Why? Because everyone has a different opinion on it. Every single person in my chat has a different opinion on it. Everything that I would recommend, like, some people would like and some people would hate. So it's a really tough thing, even for someone like me. And then with Blizzard, it's a very tough thing for Blizzard to nail out, to iron out. Right. Another example of this, Bronzebeard private server launched recently. A lot of people are saying they went too far. They overcooked. They didn't. It feels like retail. They didn't respect Classic enough. Season of Discovery came out. A lot of people said similar things. And with Turtle WoW, a lot of people love Turtle WoW, but a lot of people said it's just not quite for them either. So if you're Blizzard, what do you do? All right. Talking to me isn't really going to help, because that's probably what I would tell Blizzard. It's like, a lot of people want a lot of different things. So to hit the mark is, I'm not even going to say hard. It's impossible, right? Because everyone's going to want different things. So I think the way to do it is the way RuneScape did it, right? You launch minimally. You have some quality of life that you know everyone wants with the preliminary polls. And from there, you have an in-game voting system. Level 60s can vote, or over level 40s or something. And you give it up to the community. And if 70% of the community wants something that sucks, then it's on the community. At least now you've shifted blame from Blizzard to the community shifting blame on themselves. Because if you vote something through that sucks, now it's your problem, not Blizzard's. That's the best thing Blizzard can do. Because, yeah, the community is the one that needs to make up their minds on what they want. And everyone's disagreeing with each other. Of course, Blizzard can't deliver on that. It's impossible to deliver on that. So for me to be a consultant, I can't really say anything to Blizzard that they don't already know. That no one knows what they want and everyone is confused. So I think at the end of the day, it's the only way forward. It's the only thing you can do to shift the blame from Blizzard to the community. And once the community looks themselves in the mirror and says, okay, none of us can decide on what we actually want. Now let's start to refine this and start having these conversations. Now we're getting somewhere. So that's what I would probably tell them.